1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, and welcome back to It's Not a Sport, Season 3, Episode 2. We got a very good topic this week. I'm going to talk about coronavirus and how it's affected the industry a lot, what to expect from it, and what you should be doing during these times of self-isolation. But before that, like always, we're going to get into the news and esports, starting with the Overwatch League. So in first place, we have Seoul Dynasty. In second, Vancouver. Third, Philadelphia, followed by New York, then Atlanta, then Shanghai, then Paris, then London, then Los Angeles, then San Francisco, then Hangzhou, then Guangzhou Chargers, then Toronto, Los Angeles, Florida, Chengdu, Dallas Fusion, Washington Justice, Houston Outlaws, and last place is Boston. I know the Overwatch League has changed a lot since last season, where now it's split up into two parts or conferences, and then each conference has 4 subdivisions in them, so it's gotten very complicated, I would say, on what it is now, and I need to definitely refresh myself and get myself back up to date. But those are the current standings for the Overwatch League. In League of Legends, I know they have a couple games to play tonight at the time of recording this, but for LPL, Invictus is in first, being 10-1, followed by eStar in second, then FunPlus in third. Fourth is Top Esports. Tied for fifth is Edward Gaming, Royals Never Give Up, and JD Gaming. Eighth is Oh My God. Ninth is Team WE. Tied for 10th is Vinci Gaming and Sunning. Tied for 12th is LNG Esports and Rogue Warriors. 14th is LGD. Tied for 15th is Domino's Esports and Billy B Gaming. And last place is Victory 5, being 0-12. Yikes. In LCK, which we actually just got news about them that I'll talk about later, we have Gen G and T1 tied for first. Then Dragon X in third. Damwon and KT tied for fourth. Afrika Freaks in sixth. Hanwha Life, Sandbox, and APK Prince all tied for seventh. And Griffin is in last place. In LEC, which is Europe, we have G2 in first, followed by Fnatic, then Origins, then Mad Lions, then Misfits, then Rogue, then Excel, then Skalak 04, SK Gaming, and Team Vitality is in last place. They are actually also in playoffs, and in the first round of playoffs, we saw Mad Lions win their game against G2 3-2. Then Fnatic won their game versus Origins 3-1, and then Misfits lost their game to Rogue 3-1. Then Fnatic and Mad Lions are set to play next, with also Origins and Rogue also set to play next. And in the quarterfinals, we have G2 versus To Be Decided. In the LCS, the regular season ended with Cloud9 being in first, followed by Evil Geniuses, then 100 Thieves, FlyQuest, TSM, Golden Guardians, Dignitas, Immortals, Team Liquid, and CLG in last place. For playoffs in the LCS, Cloud9 3-0 to 100 Thieves in round 1, followed with Evil Geniuses 3-1 to FlyQuest in round 1. In round 2, we have FlyQuest versus Golden Guardians, 100 Thieves versus TSM, and then in quarterfinals, we have Evil Geniuses versus Cloud9, and To Be Decided versus To Be Decided. Alright, next up, I'm going to do something a little bit different here. In the past, I haven't been I didn't really want to record on this just because I didn't really know how it works, but I'm gonna try and do my best now to get updated on CS:GO Professional and let my viewers know how that's going as well. The difficulties with CS:GO, however, is that it's an open league, which means anyone can host a tournament if they want to, unlike Overwatch and League of Legends, where it's closed and Riot or Blizzard generally handles all esports things with those games. With Valve games, they're open, so anyone can do it. And I know one of the big major ones for CSGO is the ESL Pro League. So I'm just going to report the standings and learn as we go along. So it's broken up into two stages, stage 1 and stage 2. I believe stage 1 is already over and it's into stage 2. A lot of games now are going into playoffs for mid-season supposed to happen, but with the coronavirus, as I'll talk about in later talks, it's very interesting how or what's going to change. So I'm just going to list standings. In first place, we have Fnatic. In second, we have Navi XBet. Third, we have Mouse Esports. Fourth, we have Austral Unbit. And fifth, we have FaZe Clan. And in sixth, we have OG. So Overwatch League is, or not Overwatch League, pardon me, CSGO is very dominant by a European standing. It is definitely their game over there. And it's very interesting to see that these teams, where they may fail in other games, are so successful in the Overwatch League. So let's get into this month's games. In April, now that we entered April, the big two ones being Resident Evil 3, which came out last Friday, and Final Fantasy 14, or my bad, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, which comes out next Friday, or this week. And we've gotten some news of some reviews of these games, and I have to say they're very, very interesting. So I'm going to spend a minute talking about that. Alright, so let's talk about Resident Evil 3 Remake first. Overall, people seem to be enjoying it. It's got an 80 on Metacritic right now with a user score of 6.4, and IGN gave it a 9. So people have been really enjoying the game. From what I've seen from the game, it looks, just as good as Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's fantastic. I hear the music and the tracks on it are really good because it's not a new track. They're kind of remixes of the original game, and it's overall it seems to be a very good experience. But here's the downside. So it seems like a lot of people are, while they're happy with the product, they're not thinking it's worth the $60 price tag because of all the small things they set back on, and really also comparing it to its predecessor, the Resident Evil 2 Remake, and how well that was received and how well that was done. And I can see why. So first things first, in this game, the campaign, I think, is generally probably one of the biggest concerns for people, is that it's only 5 hours long, which is extremely short. Generally, the standard for campaigns and games is 8 hours, so to speak. Depends on what game you're playing, but it's 8 hours. And it's only 5 hours long, and it doesn't have a whole lot of replayability. So, that's why I think people are really disappointed and why they say it's not really worth the $40 or $60 price tag. It would be better with maybe $40. I could see this. Resident Evil 2 Remake, the campaign itself was actually probably 5 hours long on average, beating it. But, and then speedrunners, took that down to an hour or 40 minutes. But as a whole, that game had so much replayability compared to this one. Resident Evil 2 Remake, you had Leon A, which was 5 hours, and then you had Leon B, which would be a little bit faster, but still 5 hours, and vice versa, Claire A, Leon B. But in this game, it's just one single route. So that's it being cut down to 5 hours is really undermining. The other big thing is technical issues. I feel like, and not technical issues as like, oh, it's laggy or anything like that. Technical issues as in Resident Evil 2 remake, if there's a zombie on the ground, you could take off its limbs, and when it triggered when you come around the corner, it couldn't follow you. Or when you shot off its limbs, you would actually see it fall off in Resident Evil 2 remake. Those technical aspects were really cut back in Resident Evil 3. And it seems like now like limbs just explode. Zombies that are on the ground, you can't interact with them until like you hit the trigger, and then they come alive. So things like that are really kind of set the tone of the game. Another big thing I've heard about the game is that it plays more like an action game, and that's kind of really easy because of the action game. The game gives you a lot more ammo than the previous game, and they kind of cut back on the survival part of the survival horror, which is sad. Apparently the game has extra difficulties once you beat it, but that's sad to see it, because I think the reason why Resident Evil 2 was so successful is because it stopped being an action game like Resident Evil 6 and went back to being survival horror and kind of in the middle like Resident Evil 4 was. And this game's like that. I think it's probably closer to Resident Evil 4, but it's a little shaky from what people like tend to get, because you get a lot of heavy weapons by the end of the game or some shit like that. Of course, these are all like from what I've heard browsing the internet. And I will get my own take on it once I actually get my hands on the game. The last big major thing I think to note was that they really sped up the game, I guess. A lot of things they kind of skipped, or just kind of, wasn't in from the original game to begin with. So it's kind of I think that's why it's really fast, and like a lot of content's missing, which I wonder is just because they ran out of time, or maybe they're scared of the virus or anything like that that kind of plagued the world or something like that. So it's kind of sad to see it not as par as Resident Evil 2 remake was. Besides people being upset that it's only 5 hours long and that they cut a lot of content from the original game, they say also Nemesis is kind of a pushover. They say that they introduce him well and that he's super scary, but because of the dodge mechanics, by the end of the game you get kind of used to him, and you can just kind of just completely flat out annoy, just like he's not there. I think why Resident Evil 2 was so successful with Mr. X is because he showed up when you didn't expect it. And Nemesis is supposed to always be chasing you, and he does, but then apparently it just kind of falls flat, which is very interesting game development. So overall, Resident Evil 2 remake, I think if you haven't played the original game, you won't see a problem. If you treat it as its own game and not compare it to the original, and you haven't played RE2 remake, then it's gonna be a fantastic game. But if you played RE2 remake, then it may be a little bit iffy for you. And if you definitely played all of them, being the original RE3 and RE2 remake, then this game will be really kind of weird for you. Me personally, because of this, just probably some insight on what's gonna probably happen. RE2 came out around this time last year in 2019, and then it went on sale, and by the end of the year, around the holidays, it was like $20-$30. It was incredibly cheap, which I expect that they're probably going to do with this game as well. Maybe not if it doesn't sell too well, now that I think about it, because RE2 remakes probably sold really well, and that's why they were able to do it. But I would wait on it. That's my take. The other game that's coming out this month that I am personally really looking forward to is RE7 remake, which also kind of had a little bit of interesting news on it. This is sitting at an 87 right now by critics on Metacritic by score. It looks really good. It looks fantastic. I am super hyped for it. But I was looking at a Reddit thread this morning talking about reviews of it, and what I saw was concerning, very interesting, and I can see why it's going to probably be a problem for certain individuals. So I'll start with this story first. My friend Alberto, or Tito as we like to call him, I want to say he's not a hardcore gamer. He plays some games, but mostly, unless it's a multiplayer game with some ladder, he doesn't really play it. But one game that he did play, and I think he liked, was Kingdom Hearts 3 when it came out. So, and as we all know, when it came out last year, it was kind of just an okay game. But one thing about Kingdom Hearts, right, is that as a franchise, it is the most confusing, so many plot holes, just doesn't make any fucking sense, story-wise, RPG in any game's history. And out of every RPG I've played, Kingdom Hearts is incredibly fucking confusing. The combat itself is really good and really fun, of course, and that's why I think people fell in love with it. But the story itself makes no fucking sense. Now, moving on to present time, last game that they released, Square Enix, their big major title, of course, last year was Kingdom Hearts 3. And then we get the Final Fantasy 7 remake. It's made in the same engine. And the first thing my friend Tito tells me, it looks a lot like Kingdom Hearts 3, and it does. And it has the same director, pardon me if I butcher this, Tetsuya Nomura. So he's the same guy who actually wrote the Kingdom Hearts story, and he's just made it really confusing. So when I was on this Reddit thread today, and I was looking at how Final Fantasy 7 Remake was coming along and what people thought about it, is that it's a very good remake up till the ending. When it got to the ending, a lot of people were saying that it felt like they were playing Kingdom Hearts again, which is just concerning to me, because hold up, as I said before, this is split into 3 episodes. They're now changing up the story onto it, and it gets very loopy, like in Kingdom Hearts storyline is how the ending's going. So that's just a kind of almost a red flag to me. I'm still gonna pick it up because it's been really promising up until that ending, it seems like, but people are very kind of like, yeah, it's a good game, it felt good, or it was really good, but when it got to that ending, it felt like I was playing Kingdom Hearts, and it got very loopy. So that's one thing I think that you should be warned about. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't really think it means anything. One Reddit poster actually said something very interesting, that when it comes going into this game, just like I previously said with the Final Fantasy, it's going to be kind of 2 sections where you've either played the original Final Fantasy remake when it first came out, so this ending's gonna hit you very weird, and this game's gonna be very weird to you. You've played it like me, who's gone back and played it because you've heard how much of a classic it is, and then it's going to be kind of like a mixed bag of potatoes. That's going to be the most concerning group. And then if you're going into it as a brand new game, you're interested because you've heard about how good this game was, but you never really played the original or want to play the original because of how old it is, then that's going to be okay for you. But this is definitely going to be an interesting release, and I can't wait to play it and talk about it on next week's show. So the last thing I wanted to talk about before big thing in news before we get into the main talk of COVID-19 is that the LCK, which is the League of Legends League in Korea, will be franchising next year. I think this is very interesting because are they going to take the EU NA approach and go to best of 1, where right now they're holding best of 3s? And I think the Riot there is going to also be rebranding, so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes, and I'll cover that as it develops. But now, let's get into our main topic, talking about COVID-19 on the gaming industry. So this may be a two-parter for this talk on this episode, but 2020 has been a roller coaster of a year, starting with the forest fires in Australia, going into multiple other hazardous things in this year. I can't even remember. It just all blurs together for me. But right now, the biggest crisis, of course, is COVID-19, or this coronavirus. It is affecting not just the gaming industry, but every single industry and every single part of the world as we know it. Right now, as I'm recording this, it's the end of March. We're going into April. There's some good games that I want that are coming out that I'm looking forward to that already got delayed. I'm hoping they don't get delayed again. And I live in Illinois, where the state is on lockdown. We're not technically allowed to leave our houses. So this virus has affected really everything. So I want to talk about how this virus will probably affect the industry, multiple industries, not just the gaming industry. And I want to talk about why you're in housing, what games you can check out and enjoy, why we're kind of in lockdown. So, how does this COVID-19 affect the industry? Well, let's start with the gaming industry. First off, as we've seen with the gaming industry, it hasn't affected it too much because a lot of the gaming stuff that we see can be done from home. So even though, they may close their offices, a lot of the work that can be done when developing a game can be done from home. Your programmers or coders can still code. Your artists can still do their art with Photoshop. Your animators can still do your animations. In the business, of course, you're in business meetings all day, which kind of sucks. Business, I think, is a lot harder. But for the artistic side, as long as you have a good computer at home, which I'm sure your company will probably provide you if you're working in this industry, you can do it from home. And as long as you have the internet, you can push patches, updates as much as possible. We've seen this with Riot, even though, with this coronavirus, they're still working on League and updating and balancing and, et cetera, doing voiceovers. We've seen this with Blizzard and World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft just it pushed an encrypted version of their next expansion onto their servers, and it's encrypted, but we know that they're still working just from them pushing this version. And mostly it hasn't really affected release dates so much. We still saw Animal Crossing released on time after it got delayed. We still saw Doom released on time. We still, as far as we know it, Resident Evil 3 is being released on time, and Final Fantasy 7 is also being released on time. There's been no real delays, but we have seen shutdowns of things like customer services or support may be shut down. For Final Fantasy 14 MMO, this was shut down. And we have seen not really, I think, parts of a company being shut down, but more things are being adapted for the virus. So things are being changed. For instance, this for WoW, World of Warcraft, they were like, since everyone's home, here's bonus XP for this week, or for Final Fantasy 14, since everyone's home, the housing market in the game won't, crash or reset or anything like that. So we're seeing a lot of companies more adapting to the player base's needs for the coronavirus rather than their own, because a lot of this work, I believe, can just be done from home. Now, on the other industry side, the movie industry has suffered a lot. What this virus does essentially is that if you're isolated and you can work in an isolated area or zone, you're fine. Because a lot of this gaming stuff can be done not from the office but from home, the gaming industry doesn't really suffer a whole much. However, the movie industry, where you have to be together on set recording, where you have to be in a theater when it releases to see it, it is suffering heavily. We see a lot of movies getting pushed and delayed until next year or until the end of the year, like Wonder Woman, the new 007. I can't believe they canceled Fast and Furious, right? So a lot of these movies are being pushed because you can't go to the movie theaters because that's a group activity where multiple people gather. We're seeing the Batman that was supposed to be shooting got postponed indefinitely because people can't group on set to record. So if there's any entertainment industry that's going to heavily affect it, it is that restaurants are being affected heavily. Dave & Buster's or any type of club or party joint are being affected. They can't open for business. So is the economy itself, with all these, jobs being affected, probably going to go downhill into a recession? Most likely, yeah. But it's just kind of the way of life and the way things flow. It sucks, but when these things happen economically, production kind of falls off. Like it stops. It goes down. If you look on the chart, it just, like, if you look on a graph chart, you think of the graph it's going up. Well, when these things, it just starts going down, and eventually it will go back up. But for now, it's in a decline. So when we're in this state and this virus and you're working from home and you're like me, maybe you're a student and it's really kind of fucked up because now your schools don't even know what the fuck they're doing. What do? Well, we've seen a surge in Netflix, of course. You have shows to watch. We see a surge in games. Fortnite's player base went up. League's player base went up. WoW, etc.'s player base went up. We see probably a lot of more movies, watching, things like that. Streaming services going up. So, what do you do with all this time? Of course, first thing I'm going to recommend is that you go and watch the last season's finale, or the seasons before that, season 1's finale, I believe, the recommendation shows. Because on those shows, I recommend what you should watch, what you should play, and what should you read if you want to read a manga or anything like that, or watch a cartoon. So, personally, some things that I've done is I've beaten Half-Life 2 because they gave it away for free and I never watched it again. I've rewatched Avatar: The Last Airbender. Great show. And I've been playing a lot more League of Legends, which I'm not too happy about. I've been beating a lot of story games, and I have been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14. So those are some things I personally been doing. What I recommend to you, I'm just going to recommend some story games and some TV shows and some mangas that you can watch, of course, from my list. And of course, I'm going to go from what I thought was the best of last year and 2018. And some things, at least for this time, being in March, going into April, some things you can look forward to. So for games, I think of course, look at the classics, like The Last of Us, the Uncharted franchise for PlayStation, or Halos. The Halos got remastered for PC. Play some of those. It's at times like this, I think it's always really good to go back and either replay or learn the classics. A really perfect good classic, it's kind of late now, but you can do it. Final Fantasy VII. Play that, and then when the remake comes out, you will be prepared. You will understand why it's such a big deal for this game to be remastered and why people fell in love with it in the first place. The Witcher 3 is a good game to play right now. I think Persona 5, Nier Automata, some of these cult classics are also really good to play right now. Of course, I think some of the best games to play, at least if you didn't get around to them last year, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, fantastic game. It was my game of the year for 2019. Resident Evil 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Devil May Cry 5, Kingdom Hearts 3, Final Fantasy 14 Shadowbringers is probably my go-to coronavirus game. If you never played an MMO, if you want to play an MMO, Final Fantasy 14 Shadowbringers is the game for you. It's my favorite MMO to play. So definitely check that out, especially if you have a lot of time on your hands, because with how good the story is, how good the combat is, how good the music is, it is a massive time sink. I've been playing it for about a year now. I believe I have like 69 days or something on the game. Funny, right? So definitely check that one out. Older games of the year is God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, or Marvel Spider-Man. Play a Dark Souls, play a Skyrim. There's a lot to check out, and those are some of the games I just recommend that I just named. But again, just go back previously and listen on our YouTube, listen to one of our recommendation shows, and that you'll just have a list of just shows that you will want to listen to, or shows that you want to watch, games that you want to play, animes that you want to watch, manga that you want to read, comics you want to read. Just go for it, because now is the time to do it. But now is also the time not just to play, but also to create. I personally have been working on a story for a game that I want to create. It is in very early development, but that's what I've been working on. My friends I know have been doing art and posting it to their Instagram. Some of my other friends are more frustrated because their creative fields they can't actually do because of this virus. But if you're an artist, you want to draw, you want to host a podcast, you want to create a game, you want to do animation, now is the time to do that as well. If you want to learn a new skill, speak a new language, learn how to play guitar, an instrument, if you are a singer, now is the time to do that. With some of the games out of the way, we can move on in the movies. I think Akira is a good movie. Chinatown is a classic. The Godfather's classic. Sunset Boulevard is a really old school classic. I will rewatch Interstellar, Blade Runner. There's a lot of actually good classic films on Netflix right now. Shawshank Redemption, I believe, is on there. Blade Runner's on there. Goodfellas. So if you want to watch some good stuff, Netflix is the place to do it. Amazon is the place to do it. They have some really good shit right now. It's the reason why their stocks and why they've gone up over the virus. Disney Plus. People are now buying a lot of Disney Plus and watching that. Even though I'll get into that next after we go over a little bit more, some more movies. You can watch the old Pixar films. Pixar is always a great, films. We've been watching The Dark Knight Rises and The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, some Batman films. Jaws, the old Iron Mans, Zombieland, Home Alone, some more classics. Again, when it comes to movies, there's just so many that you can play. Same with games. We rewatched Black Panther, and I've only saw it once in theater and seen it again. Was really cool to see it again. Old kung fu movies. We rewatched The Incredibles over this coronavirus break. So a lot of good movies to watch. TV shows too. We have The Walking Dead. You can watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, Game of Thrones if you've never seen that. I've been Kingdom which was a really cool kind of Korean zombie movie or TV show, just got updated on Netflix, as well as Castlevania. The Boondocks, if you've never seen that, it's hilarious. We've been watching a lot of South Park. Watchmen was a very good show when it was on. It just finished up last year. You can watch that as well. There's even really old classics that you could watch as well. Like right now, you could be watching Seinfeld. I know my friend was watching that one. Or a really old, I think, gangster classic, The Sopranos, is also a very good show that you could be watching. In terms of cartoons, I already went over some of them. Batman the Animated Series is a good one. All the dirty kind of adult cartoons, South Park, Archer, Rick and Morty, Bob's Burgers, The Simpsons, Family Guy, American Dad, Futurama. You can go watch those. The old Teen Titans, you can watch those. Again, we just rewatched Avatar: The Last Airbender. Again, there's some also very good ones. Young Justice is a good one. The old Justice League shows are a good one. The Dragon Prince on Netflix is a good one. And then, of course, right now with Disney Plus, Star Wars: The Clone Wars being updated each Friday is a very good one. Stars versus Forces of Evil. Even if you've some old really shows that I like, Chaotic. I love that show when I was a kid. Troll Hunters, Voltron. A lot of good cartoon shows to watch if you're a young adult or if you're with your kid. Again, it's all in the recommendation. When it comes to anime, there's tons of animes you can watch. JoJo's Bizarre Adventures is one of my favorite ones. Your Name is a very good movie. If you want to watch a very long one, Legends of the Galactic Heroes, Demon Slayer, Mob Psycho 100, Cowboy Bebop. I'm currently watching ReZero, Life in Another World, the Noragami, the Bakuman Magan, I butchered that series, Dr. Stone, Psycho's Pass. Again, I'm just going down the list of some of these favorite ones. The Naruto, Shippuden, some Gundams if you like mechs, Bleach, the classics of One Piece. But again, with all those mangas, they also really good transition into, or animes, they also transition into good manga to read. Of all those, again, you can read just as much. Naruto, One Piece, they could be a little bit more caught up. Dragon Ball Z is a must. Even if you're not into anime, I guarantee you'll like Dragon Ball Z. So with the coronavirus, you have a lot to watch, you have a lot to experience, you have a lot to do. But again, there's only one thing I can really stress that you should do with this time. It's probably the hardest thing to do, is to create. Create. You know, if you have some sort of idea, get it out on paper. And just do it. You know, if you want to start working towards starting a business, start doing that. If you want to make a painting, do it. If you want to create a drawing in Photoshop or do visual art, do it. If you want to learn 3D animation or 3D modeling, do it. You know, there's tons of videos in open source. Unity right now is having I believe they're having a free open source on helping people learn Unity and how to script in Unity and make their own games. If you want to make music, go ahead and do it. People are now so open to their assets and so open to creation, because that's what we really need to be doing in this time. Yes, it's fun to experience all these games, and it's more difficult to sit down and really create something, especially when all your friends are at home or on Discord and you can just interact with them all day because no one has really anything to do. But you need to be creating something. Just one thing, especially over this period. That is the major thing you need to be doing. Alongside that, there are also smaller things that just to do to just keep, you know, take care of yourself. Do a workout every day in the house. It doesn't have to be long. I do like bare minimum. But do that. You know, go outside, get a little bit of air. Just because they say don't leave our house doesn't mean you can't go like 5 feet in the house. Even like sitting in the car is pretty, you know, good just to keep your mental health up. Eat well. And of course, do the coronavirus safety. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face, etc., etc. Really take care of yourself. And that's what you should be doing during this virus. I hope you guys are well and getting through it all right. And of course, after this show, after you listen to this, put down your phone and just start creating something is what I really want you to do. right, thank you for watching this week's episode of It's Not a Sport. I know these have gone a lot longer than usual, but that's because it's the beginning of the season and there's just a whole lot of interesting news to cover. If you want to listen to all of our past shows or previous seasons, they're all up on our YouTube channel, It's Not a Sport. Check out our website, itsnotasport.com. Follow us on social media, on our Instagram, It's Not Sport to You. If you have any topics you want to cover, make sure to contact us. It's all up on our website. This has been your host, Salty Waffles, also known as Taban Lewis, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful climb.